shadow can only be heard, but never seen.
Let us strive every moment of our lives to make ourselves better and better to the best of our ability.
Sometimes masquerading as the Spider, thus concealing his identity from both criminals and the police.
The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay, but shadow knows.
Shadow knows.
To get some of the history of the Bronze Gazette in place for people who aren't familiar, it originally launched under a different kind of regime, and approximately when did it do that?
Well, I mean, it started in about 1990 by Howard Wright, who originally called it the Doc Savage Gazette, and Condé Nast said nope. So he changed it to the Bronze Gazette. And then he kept it going till about, I think it was 2015, 2016. He did 75 issues.
Okay.
Just your typical fanzine, you know. And then he was tired of it and asked Terry, he and Terry Allen got together, and Terry said, well, I can do it. And then that's how Terry got it. And at DocCon, I made the mistake when Terry said, hey, you know, I'm going to do this magazine. I said, well, who's going to be your editor? And he just looked at me and said, you. So that's how I got the job. I talked at the wrong time.
And that was approximately, was that in 2016 as well then? Or was that?
Yeah, that was, our first issue was summer 2016.
Okay. And now
that was issue 76.
76. And now you're actually the publisher of the Gazette, and I think it's fair to say it's kind of a family business with you as publisher.
Yeah.
Your daughter Juliet is editor, and your wife Catherine.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, your wife Catherine is deputy editor too, right?
Yeah. So what happened was about a year and a half ago, Terry got he got tired. So he decided he wanted to give it up, and I said, well, I can do it. So I took over publishing and took, it ended up being about a year and a half publishing break because we moved and I got sick and there was other issues going on. And eventually I called Terry back and said, hey, you know, me sending all this stuff from Canada mostly to the U.S. is a pain. So Terry came in to do fulfillment. So he actually prints the issue for me at a printer near him and then mails them out from his house. So, but the rest of it is, it's me as publisher, Juliet, my daughter, as editor, and Catherine, my wife, as deputy editor. And, you know, it's not like they don't have extensive experience in Doc Savage. I mean, Catherine and I met because of her love of Doc Savage. We met at a PulpCon, and Juliet was born into a family that was, you know, way too much into Doc Savage, so she didn't have a choice.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What are some of the changes you've made to the publication in which you take the most pride?
Well, you know, I think I take the most pride in the fact that I didn't change a lot. I wanted to make sure that we put out the same kind of issues we were doing before. Mm-hmm. We turned it more into a not a hardbound, but, you know, a square bound issue that looks really nice. We do a lot of work on our layout and design and, you know, full color. It's if somebody has a chance to see one of the issues, they're really nice looking. And then of course we still have all the same authors who have been Doc Savage fans for decades, who are bringing up new items, new articles. I think one of the things we did in this last issue is we did something different I've been wanting to do for a while. We did a flip book issue.
Yeah, kind of like an old Ace paperback style, right?
Yeah, like an old Ace double, still the same size issue as we've done before, but it's an actual, 2 issues in one. We bumped up the number of pages. We normally did 48 or so. We went to 56 issues. 56 pages. Any larger and it becomes too expensive to mail.
Right.
So we have to keep our issue under a certain number of pages. But we did that. We one side or one issue of the double issue is straight Doc Savage articles about in this case it was Ron Hill's documentary We Are Doc Savage, and then The Crimson Rooster by Mark Lambert, which was a book that he recently published that sort of took Doc Savage fandom in La Plata and did a little twist on it. And then Will Murray had an article about what he called the final Ken Robeson roundup. So he was talking about the last of the semi-ghost of Kenneth Robeson. And then in the other half of the issue, or the other side, it was all what-if articles. It was how one of the things I've been proud of that we've done is look at Doc Savage fandom has been going for almost 100 years now, and this group of fans have been doing it for about 50 years. And so they've done some, fun things with fandom. They've done some fun things with the character. And in our case, we have an article by Jeffrey Doberful that talks about the original history of Doc Savage, Warrior of Bronze, the Klingon Doc Savage. And then Denny Hager tells us all about the magazines, the Doc Savage science fiction magazines that were done in the 50s, which, of course, didn't happen in our particular timeline, but happened in Denny's.
Right.
So it's a very interesting read, yeah.
Well, the world's all about the multiverse now, so
Yeah. And we didn't call it multiverse when we were growing up, but we all sort of did our own, takes on Doc Savage as kids, those of us who became writers and those who didn't. So, it's a little more of doing that, but having fun with it.
Is some of that driven, you're approaching nearly 100 issues now of the Gazette.
Mm-hmm.
Is it difficult sifting through submissions and finding kind of scholarly topics or subjects that haven't been exhaustively explored by now?
I don't know if it's difficult. I mean, I had much more than I could publish for this. I mean, some of those articles were waiting 2 years to be published after our long break. I don't think it's difficult. I think that it takes a certain kind of person who wants to sit through and sift through all the books and come up with something that's different. Look at it. I mean, Will Murray's done such a good job researching all the authors that no one else really needs to take time with that. And then you have also the big problem, I think, that's been true for all our issues since '76. The internet exists now.
Right.
And people will put stuff out on their own websites instead of putting it in a magazine. And you can't blame them. I mean, they get immediate satisfaction of putting it up there and are posting it to, one of the Doc Savage groups. I mean, I can't tell you how many times on the Flearun I've sent a text to somebody saying, well, that would have made a great article for a Bronze Gazette. So,
I've been a recipient of one of those or two. Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I don't blame them, and it's you see that in all the kinds of fanzines that exist now, that people people have that instant publication and instant gratification, and they don't necessarily think about, should I put this in a magazine? And what I like to tell people is, I'm sorry to say, but the internet, all that stuff disappears after a while. I've been running a website myself for 30 years, and all of it disappears after a while. So the things that are going to last are the stuff that gets actually printed. So a lot of times I will tell people is that I know you wanted to put that on your website, but if we can get it in a magazine, then we know that, 10 years, 15 years from now, it'll still exist, which, as we know, if you put it on Facebook, who knows when it'll disappear.
Well, yeah, even the Wayback Machine doesn't go all that way back, and certainly not thoroughly. No. Yeah. For those who still kind of dig around in there, you mentioned the June edition and the fact it's kind of a double issue. It's numbered 96 and 97. Will that repeat for the other edition coming later this year, or was that kind of a one-off?
Yeah, when people subscribed, they subscribed to 2 volumes. We told them you'd get 2 issues. Didn't say that the numbers would be, just 2 numbers.
Right.
But you're getting 2 issues. So they're getting actually more. Like I said, they got 56 pages in June, and I'm aiming for another 56 pages in December. And I'm going to number them, the next 2 numbers again. And the reason to do that is that I was looking, if I kept going, I would be publishing issue 100 in 2027, and I'm getting older, and I kind of would like to get to 100 while I'm still around,
right.
Even though Juliet and Catherine, have promised they'll take over everything I'm doing on Doc Savage after I'm gone, but, I kind of want to see issue 100, which is going to be a very different kind of issue. I don't have a page number limit on that issue. And I'll probably just sell it as a one-shot, just finish it and then tell people, here's how much it cost. Do you want to order one? And then we'll print exactly the number we need. Kind of the Meteor House approach to doing a book. And the reason I'm doing that is that I want to get everything I can into at least issue 100. I want every Doc Savage fan that I've been talking with for the last 30 years to find something in that issue with their name on it, something that they've done. That's my hope. And we'll deal with how to publish it and how to print it and how to mail it when we get to that point. But I've been working a little bit on books this past year, so I think we can do something with issue 100 that'll be fun. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it actually anticipated my question, because I was going to ask if you would dare venture into what the 100th might hold. So that's exciting news.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to preview about the one coming in December?
No.
Okay. Fair enough. So that gives me I'm juggling all these different articles, and I'm one of the kinds of people that will decide at the last minute. We'll put everything we can together, and then we'll decide the lineup at the last minute. So I'd hate to preview something and then end up deciding to pull that one out and hold it for 100. So sure. In addition to the actual issues, there are often special offerings and kind of surprises included. There's an annual Christmas card, of course. The most recent issue, you had a magnet that was kind of adhesed into the cover. There have been miniature full-figure standees of Doc, Pat, the 5 aides. How did this evolve, and do you have similar plans for more?
Oh, yeah. We always do that. That's Terry. Terry likes the extras. Terry likes, we'll make a little design and then send it to Terry, and then he'll find a magnet company that can make, magnets. And he likes that stuff. And so, when we started doing this issue, he's like, can I do that again? And I'm like, sure, because we like to give something extra to the subscribers. That's the big deal, is that they're getting something that anybody who buys the issue later won't get. They won't get any of that stuff. And it's purely just for subscribers. We also have sent the Christmas card to not only subscribers, but to everybody. So it gives a chance for people who want to see sort of what the Bronze Gazette is about to get, an idea of the kind of article or what if or something we'll do. And also fans of Doc Savage to get another place where they can publish their work. It's the thing about running a fanzine is everybody does this for free.
Yeah.
I could get my wife and daughter to work for free because, they don't want to see those sad puppy eyes. But, I have to tell other people, it's like, yeah, I can't pay you. I don't make any money. I get zero out of the subscriptions. We basically, I work as publisher and editor for free and always have. So we run this on as tight a shoestring as we can. So giving the little extras or, sometimes Terry will make some extras and like he did this last time and sold some sets. So that's how he made his money back on the magnets,
Right.
But for the most part, I would say over the last 10 years, we've been doing this at a loss. It's a labor of love.
If you don't want to address this, that's fine. I get it. The Phantom Press, do you want to talk anything about that and what it kind of is intended for?
Sure. The Phantom Press is separate. That's Terry's job.
Okay.
That's Terry's been running the Phantom Press for, God, as long as I've known Terry, so 25 years or so. And what he's done is work with Kez and other authors and try to put out special editions of books. Bob, he's been a friend and a help with Bob Larkin for years now. So a lot of the stuff that Phantom Press does is raising money to send to Bob. So they've done that a lot.
And Bob being Doc Savage cover artist.
I'm sorry, Bob Larkin.
Bob Larkin, yeah.
The artist.
Yeah, Marvel, numerous paperbacks, and certainly Doc Savage.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a big deal in the Bantam world of Doc Savage. Bob had, I think, the second most covers right after Jim Bama. And great work. I mean, he's still active on the Flearun. You'll see him come in and like something every now and then. Mm-hmm. So Phantom Press is separate.
Do you have a hand in that though, in some degree, or?
Yeah, I'm still doing layout and stuff for some things that Terry does. So, but I have it runs completely out of his home, so I don't know. I send him a file, and eventually I see something come out. It's he handles that part. But yeah, it's again, all of this is an attempt by this third generation of Doc Savage fans to keep the fandom going. That's what we're working on. That's what we like to do.
And that obviously leads to the inevitable but necessary question: in your particular point of view and role within Doc Savage fandom, and as core website, core social media sites, obviously the Bronze Gazette, what's the state of Doc Savage and his prospects for the future this summer of 2025? He's approaching a centenary, so.
Yeah, I think I like to say, I just mentioned it, we're the third wave of Doc Savage fans. There were the original magazine fans, then there were the original original Bantam fans.
Right.
And then the internet fans. And there's some people that have straddled both eras, but the internet fans, we've found that, how do I put this? You have your hardcore fandom who don't want Doc Savage to change.
Right.
In any way, shape, or form.
Not even into the 1940s. Keep him in the 30s, yeah.
Yeah, keep him in the 30s. Keep everybody like they were described in the magazine in 1933. Mm-hmm. And keep that. And then, it's a spectrum. So you have some people that say, I'd be willing to, have Doc move up into 2025. Though personally, I'm not quite sure how Doc would fare in a 2025 world. But then you have somebody who will write a pastiche like Doc Tallis, who's brought Doc right into a different kind of world. So anything's possible. I just don't think the majority of fans want a lot of change. But the reality of the world today is, plain and simple, Doc Savage and his 5 male aides are not going to make a great movie. I will tell that to anybody. They're just not. You need some diversity if you want that movie to exist. So, will they accept it? I'm not so sure. Will new fans accept Doc Savage when they have witnessed Indiana Jones for 25, 30 years, however long it's been now, 40 years? They think of Doc Savage as a takeoff on Indiana Jones rather than the other way around.
Reverse, yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't, this is a long way of me saying Condé Nast, Advanced Publications, just had Patterson do a couple of books of Doc's grandson, Brant Savage, and those are horrible failures. There's no other way to put it. I think the Patterson fans picked them up and might have said, okay, yeah, and then went on to the next Patterson book. But the Doc Savage fans shouldn't. I don't think I know a single Doc Savage fan who liked Patterson books.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah.
So, will Doc Savage continue? Most of the fans now are in their 60s. I don't think Doc Savage is going to continue. I don't think a Doc Savage movie is going to be made when they can make something that's got a much larger core audience than Doc Savage. Now, does that mean I can foretell the future? And no. There could be 20 years from now, somebody say, hey, what about this character 100 years ago? Let's do something with him and, make hit movies. I won't be around to see it, but I just don't see any time in the next 2 or 3 years a Doc Savage movie or series, or my personal favorite would have been an animated series. I just don't think that's going to happen.
You and I have talked before, and you're kind of a data and a numbers guy.
Yeah.
And I know you have this data. How many fans in the online community that you can kind of quantify are south of 40 or even 30 years old?
South of 40?
Yeah.
A handful.
Yeah.
Just a handful. I mean,
and
my
under
daughter
30 are probably like
is
unicorns.
the youngest Doc Savage fan I know currently.
Your daughter.
And,
okay.
Yeah, and she's in her 20s.
Right. I was going to say, that's very sobering to hear. Although, I have 2 daughters, both avid readers. As young kids, when it could reach them, we watched, The Rocketeer, The Shadow, Doc Savage, all of that. Never could get a book into their hands, Yeah, he couldn't compete with Harry Potter or The Ranger's Apprentice. But
I've of course, Juliet, my youngest, did Doc Savage research during COVID. I mean, she went through every magazine of the original pulps, took out, who were the people that were getting the Doc Savage awards, who were writing letters. I mean, she did a lot of that work. At PulpFest, she did a presentation on the women of Street and Smith. Pat Savage, the women of the Avenger. And I don't think I'm saying something out of sorts when I tell you that she much preferred the women in the Avenger than she did how they handled Pat Savage.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They had agency, Nellie Gray and Roosevelt Newton. Yeah.
So, that's just the sort of thing that, that Doc Savage as a fandom has to has to realize is that my daughter's generation, Gen Z, they're looking at a whole different world than Doc Savage's world. They're looking at, how women were treated, how minorities were treated, and they're not going to accept that. I mean, I think for a lot of the fans that are, older fans now, that world in the 60s when the Bantams came out wasn't much different than the 30s and 40s. It really wasn't much different. And there was a lot of accepting of, okay, well, we won't worry about, we know this is wrong, inherently, but we're not going to worry too much about it because we're going to read it as of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Gen Z looks at it and says, I don't want to read it as of the time. I've got a limited amount of time in my life, and I don't necessarily want to read something of people doing things that I'm not happy with.
Right.
I mean, there's instances of racism and, that kind of stuff in Doc Savage, and to pretend that there's not would be, not being honest with ourselves. Now, was Doc Savage one of the most racist magazines of the time? Oh, God, no. It was one of the better ones. But there's still some scenes in there that are uncomfortable today to a Gen Z audience.
Yeah. Pat Savage herself has a line in one of them that just sends you squirming, That's very racially unacceptable. Yeah.
One of the covers has Doc putting blackface on, I think it was Long Tom. So...
Yeah, Quest of the Spider. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think you want to try to keep today's fans happy, that have been with Doc for years, but to get a new set of fans, I think what New Pulp is doing has a better chance of taking Doc and putting those characters and those ideals and those ideas for the new generation. I mean, what you're doing, what Doc Tallis is doing, in very different ways, has a better chance of resonating with, I think, younger fans than the old magazines, which, is not a bad thing, because we don't lose the old magazines. To adopt something new,
right.
To adopt, new characters is a great thing, because all the old magazines are still going to be there. And even better, in a few years, they're going to be in the public domain here in the U.S. They're already in the public domain up here in Canada. Mm-hmm. So once something, I think, gets in the public domain, there's a chance of a revival there, because people can start remixing them, reprinting them. And we might get a whole new set of fans just because there are inexpensive reprints of the magazines. So we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many fan edits of the George Powell movie. It could be interesting to see people recast the actual pulps in a kind of through a similar personal prism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that, we just need to find some new pulp writers, some new writers who want to remix that. I mean, you remix music, why not remix fiction? To me, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not like we're taking money out of the mouths of Lester Dent or any of the other writers from the 1930s.
Right, right.
So,
is there anything else you'd like to get out there or to share that I've missed in our discussion? Or?
Oh, God. I had no idea what was going to happen. I can't even imagine I could talk this long. I don't want people to think that in any way that I think it's a bad thing that I haven't seen Gen Z fall in love with Doc Savage. It's not like they're different than we were at their age. It's just a different world. And they have so much more that they can work with and see. And, that, when we were kids, when we were their age, we had, much more limited. I think cable was just starting when I was my daughter's age. That shows how old I am. Mm-hmm. And I think that they will find a way to rediscover Doc Savage in a way for them at some point. Will it be the exact novels? No. But somebody will bring in a way to bring Doc Savage up into a world. Maybe there will be a nostalgia for things from the 1930s. I kind of doubt it, but maybe it'll happen. I think I want to end, though, with the Bronze Gazette. I really hope that people look into it. They go into the Flearun. they go on Blue Sky and look for, Flearun and Bronze Gazette, and mix up there. It's our chance. We don't have the magazine letters sections anymore, so getting together on social media is a way for those of us who spent all our time alone reading these books as kids to get together and talk about that. And I just really hope people do it. And I hope they like the Bronze Gazette, and if they think of anything that they would like to see in the Bronze Gazette, write me. Or write Juliet, editor or publisher at bronzegazette.ca, and there will be something that will help you put into the magazine.
As you sow evil, so shall you reap evil. Crime does not pay. The shadow knows.